Hello everybody. Today I'm going to do a special kind of challenge run where instead of playing on the max difficulty, we go through how to win on your very first run. While this certainly is a challenge, I also hope that this video can serve as a guide for anyone just getting into the game and struggling. So I'll be going over anything I can think of that helps make this complicated game a bit easier to understand, as well as showing off where some of the most powerful items in the game can be found. One last thing in case you're new, this video is sped up footage of my playthrough that I'm commenting over. Let's get started. So, early on, we don't have too many decisions to make. We have all 4 base characters. There's no perk points that we can spend just yet. This is a fresh playthrough, so yeah, just showing off a little bit of the leveling of Magnus. He starts with Reinforce. I can go over that a little bit later, but it's pretty strong. We're going to be going block build on Magnus as much as possible because defense is important. Andrin is going to be doing a bit more carrying. I had planned to go as a bit more ranged attack build, but events changed my mind and I opted going for a different path instead. Evelyn, getting Elemental Amplifier, I was highlighting there for a second, extremely important. It's going to allow her to have more charges of her elemental effects, which is very, very powerful, as normally it's hard to come by until you have perk points to invest in and get more charges. So, going into town, I do spot a purple small lake event right down there. That immediately changed my entire plan for what I was going to do this build, and I'm going to go there instead because following the event chain on that event in particular can get you probably the most powerful item in the entire game, which should make this a lot easier as we don't have any town upgrades, as I just highlighted. So unfortunately, we also can't buy any cards that we don't have in our starting decks. We have to find cards throughout the run, meaning it's pretty hard to make a tailored run on your first go through. So right now we also only have 300 gold and 300 shards. Funny enough, it actually is a bit easier to get more shards and gold as you progress in madness levels because you start with some for every character you have. So it's actually probably the poorest you'll ever be is on your first run. Speaking of poor, I'm opting to upgrade some of our cards to make them cost less because we don't have a lot of starting energy. We only have 4, and having a deck that is a bit more cost efficient will allow us to play more of our cards per turn. So we're going to be going down here. First fight is the pigs. All the fights are guaranteed on Madness 0. Well, I mean, yeah, without random battles, which is a modifier you can add much later on. But this means that you know exactly what you're getting into. So if you're following this path exactly and you're a new player, you should run into pretty much the exact same thing, except of course the card rewards will be randomized. And I believe the enemy attacks are somewhat randomized, but it really depends. So you won't be able to get everything I get, but hopefully you can get a little bit. Going through over the card rewards, Song of Celerity can be very good because it helps speed up your entire team, which is kind of slow, letting you outspeed some monsters, and going first on the next turn, it can be very powerful, or even going first on the very first turn. Fortunately, Andrin and Magnus are 2 of the fastest characters in the game to start out with, so usually you'll be able to block when you need to, and Andrin can help set up Magnus and get his deck rolling, just so he can find all the block cards. So I am playing cards in somewhat efficient order. We, again, don't have a lot of choices on what cards we get, but fortunately the first fights aren't too difficult. First act is probably what you're meant to be able to beat on Madness 0. I think they want people to be able to beat the first boss generally, even if they're relatively new to the game, but an experienced deck builder. I will say if you are an experienced roguelike deck builder player, this game is a lot easier, except you're still probably meant to lose around Act 2 or 3. But I'm going to be going over and showing off some of the knowledge that you can gain that lets you get through this challenge, probably guaranteed, I hope. Yeah. So getting charges right now is fairly important. I probably should have picked up Sacred Tablet right there for Reginald, but I wasn't sure if I was going to have any Sanctify cards. Because again, I don't know what cards I'm getting, so I opt for just the base damage right now. I'll go over why charges are so important a little bit later on. Right now, Magnus's base card of Piercing Hell allows us to slow down the entire enemy team, as well as apply a bit of Vulnerable to them, reducing the resistances by 5% for every stack of Vulnerable that they have on them, which is pretty good. Right now it's just 1, but that does let you do a lot more damage because the enemy resistances do tend to counter certain team compositions, though our composition is fairly well balanced because we start with a Warrior, Cleric, Mage, and Ranger. So I actually don't know if that's all exactly what they're called right now. But as you can see, these wood folk are a little bit resistant to physical damage, especially the Trent, who has a buff of Reinforce there. So he's going to be a little bit tough to take out. For Magnus and Andrin, fortunately, Evelyn is not going to have too much of a difficult time, and we are applying some mark on him, which means that he will take 4 extra damage on every attack that hits him. That is modified by their resistances though, so you have to watch out for that. It won't be exact, but it's pretty good. Yeah, unfortunately not too much here except for a Helping Hand on Magnus. Helping Hand gives Inspire. It allows you to give another character 1 extra draw at the start of their turn to a maximum of 10 cards, and you always draw 5 initially, so you never want to go over 5 Inspire, or rather it's more of a waste to. But still, it's not too bad. We did get the option for a challenge before starting this fight. I opted not to take it because that's a pretty hard challenge for us since Magnus and Andrin are doing quite a bit of damage. But also these guys can dish out quite a bit of damage, so I was worried I was going to take too much pain before the real battles even start. Thankfully, there's only 3 of them, and we are able to outspeed them on round 2, so we don't take too much. But yeah, as you can see, our team is kept fairly healthy. The starting fights aren't too difficult, playing cards in the right order, just getting some blocks here and there when you need them. It's pretty helpful just to make sure you take the time to play the cards at the right times. I know it sounds kind of like obvious and silly, but you know, turn order is important. You don't want to go for too much damage too quickly and end up taking a lot of damage in one fight only to be lower health the next fight and be unable to do it. We did level up before finding the first mini boss of the run. Here I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I went for the block path on Magnus, and wow, I went through that really fast. Yeah, I went for the block path on Magnus. I went for Retribution on Reginald because it'll allow him to get more bless stacks, which will let him do more damage later. Evelyn is going to have enchanted weapons, which will let her buff someone to change their damage type, as well as give them a damage bonus on that specific damage type. So that's what I went for there. And then Andrin got a card that will let him mark enemies a lot easier. It basically gives him +1 mark charges, as well as marks a random enemy every time he plays a card that costs some energy. And I believe it's for the amount of energy that he paid. So right now we're giving a lot of our energy and our draw to Andrin. We're buffing him up a lot. He's going to be our main damage dealer for this fight, or at least I thought he was until I realized they all have Reinforce, and my, unfortunately, Wild Hunt is on the bottom of the deck, which is really not what I wanted for this turn. I had set him up to have a 10 energy high draw turn, so I was hoping he could play just a bunch of cards and get a lot of mark off, making this fight a lot faster. I did look at the resistances, and I saw that Yogur, the mini-boss here, was not super resistant to fire, so I opt for the elemental damage of fire on Evelyn, and try to get that to stay. We get 7 mark off on the wizard wolf there, but unfortunately that's not the boss, and I was hoping to get it off on the boss on the better turn where he had like 10 energy, but it's okay. We're still able to apply mark consistently. Applying mark is one of the best ways to deal damage in the early game, as well as applying elemental what's it called? Debuffs? I don't know exactly what they're called. I think they're called debuffs, like bleed and fire and burn. These will do damage at the start of the enemy's turn and continue doing that damage over time, losing 1 charge per turn. So stacking those up high enough and blocking for the rest of time can help you deal a real significant amount of damage, and probably most of the damage that you'll be doing in the early game. So a card like Rend that just applies a bunch can do a lot for you. As you can see, Magnus's Wolfguard is keeping him fairly healthy. He's getting block every time he gets hit. I do opt to reload the fight here, and I wanted to show this off because this is probably one of the first lessons if you're a new player. Most card games or most deck builders that I've played that are roguelikes don't have a restart fight option. This game includes it, I think, one, because the runs are so long that losing due to a simple like misplay of card order or misclick can be really frustrating, especially if you're going to be doing like a 4-hour long run. On your first run, it's probably going to be even longer because you're going to be reading a lot of the new cards that you're getting and trying to figure out where to go. I know my first run was a bit longer, although we did die like through, I think it was Act 2. Yeah, partway through Act 2 against a mini-boss, a Spider Queen that we won't be facing this time. But yes, reloading fights is highly recommended by me, and I think by most people, because it really lets you go over how to play the game just a little bit more efficiently and learn what the enemy's attack patterns are, so you aren't just doomed if you're a new player. You get to experience their attack patterns and then play against it more efficiently. What enemies target is based on a whole bunch of randomized variables. I don't think I'm going to have time to go over it in this video too much because it's complicated. My first thing that I changed, though, is I gave the Wolfguard to Reginald, because last time Reginald died, so I wanted to make him a bit more survivable. This time I also focused Yogur a lot more. Now we don't have a lot of focused shots with Andrin, but we did draw some aims and that was enough. And yeah, now we were able to take out Yogur first thing. It's really good. Setup is a very good card. So is Uproot for the first boss in the act, but Setup is draw 3, place 2 on top of your deck. It really helps you sift through and get the cards that you want faster. Wolfcloak is a great card. It's going to give you Howl, gives you slow and vulnerable, so it's pretty much Magnus's starting card. And Yogur's Cleaver is going to allow Andrin to apply bleed on hit every time, whereas Reginald got a helmet to start out with. We could get a purple helmet here, but I opted not to because I didn't think I needed it, and I kind of wanted the gold because money is tight. We got a critical success here on the tree, so that means we're going to be starting out in ideal conditions. That is the +4 vitality and +2 speed that everybody has under them right now. That will allow them to just make sure they outspeed all the enemies with all your characters, making it much more likely you can kill at least one of them before they get to go, although with your damage level as it is, it's unlikely. We do get a barricade early on, which is nice. That's our AoE block card. Should make it so we don't take too much damage. One other important thing I have neglected to mention until now is that you do keep energy from round to round. So it's important that if you don't think a card's going to give you too much value, that you save that energy and play it on the next round. We are able to kill the Dryad here. That is our target of choice because the Dryad likes to heal the boss and the other enemy a lot. So if you can, always focus that Dryad on the first boss. Here we do get to stack up 2 charges of vulnerability, which is nice, as these guys are pretty resistant overall to our damage types so far. Divine Grace is nice. It does have a D-spell on it, meaning we can get rid of some of the bad charges like bleed that we had on us. Here I wanted Andrin to actually be slower than Magnus. The reason I wanted that was so that I could inspire him a little bit more and ideally have a better Wild Hunt turn. Unfortunately, the game had its own ideas and Magnus got slowed, so it was not meant to be. Now that we've taken out the Treant and the Dryad, we can focus all of our attention on the boss. He has 12 mark on him, which is decent. As you can see, we're doing a good amount of damage with a lot of our basic cards here. He's not very resistant to fire, as you might expect a tree not to be. He's got -20 resistance on that, so that's why I gave Andrin the fire damage enchantment. Now he's going to be doing a lot more per hit. You see these slices doing like 30s, and bam, burn the tree down. Got an excellent rating. Excellent ratings are really good. They can give you better card tiers by +2. All the rest of them are just +1 or +0 if you get down to the poor performance. But these can make a huge difference in your run. Again, I don't know which cards are going to be seen, so it's hard to build around them exactly. I'm just kind of taking what cards I think will be good on this level. I know that Fireball is a pretty good card here, so I'm thinking about Grimoire Flames because high base damage cards tend to be decent at this Madness level. Somehow Magnus lost his starting sword. I think I accidentally took the wrong runestone on Magnus. And I lost his weapon, which is unfortunate because it does give 1 extra draw at the start. But yeah. We are going to be going into the green portal because that is where our quest continues that we started on the purple event. You can see the question mark in the far right hand corner. That is where we need to go. I'm going to show exactly how to get there without having to spend money. War Banner is another really good pickup here, as is Gauntlets. Having Powerful is, well, it's powerful. Sorry, that was bad. Now, having Powerful allows you to do a lot more damage in the early game. It's one of the stats that you really want to focus. Here, I'm going to be changing Magnus's deck to be a bit more block focused, but it is important to keep some of his attacks because I don't have a lot of money. I can't just remove everything that I want to. Here I'm also going to be making Reginald's deck a bit more efficient, getting rid of the sight vision cards. I don't need them because I know what enemies are going to be doing for the most part, even though I haven't played on this level for quite some time, and all the cards do change as you go up in higher difficulties. I figured I was going to be okay. I know roughly what I'm getting into. So I want to make the decks a bit lower cost for all our heroes, as they have a bit too much... but I spent a little bit, sorry, they have a bit too many cards that are too high costing, but I spent a little bit too much removing cards, and I wasn't able to buy both the banner and the gauntlets. I did skip the banner in the first shot because I couldn't afford it, which was also unfortunate. Yeah, there's that war banner where it gives you 2 powerful on everybody on the first turn can be very, very nice. Highly recommend picking it up. That's just 10% more damage. But it goes a long way. Here I wanted to get Holy Storm. I want Holy Storm because it can apply Bless to Reginald. It hits everybody and he can do a bunch of damage. You could also apply Sanctify, which means that every time we hit the enemy, we get health back for every Sanctify charge they have on them. Evelyn, on the other hand, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with her. I could upgrade Fireball, but I think Grimoire Flames should be enough. Here I thought I was going to be able to change Grimoire Flames to the self version, but I realized that it costs money to transmute cards. There's an upgrade in the town that you can get later that makes it cost nothing to transmute cards to another type from blue to yellow. At least eventually it costs nothing. But I had forgotten all about that because I haven't played on Madness Zero in a while. Yeah, so... here we upgrade Scavenge. Scavenge is a great card. Now I'm being extra careful to upgrade the cards into exactly what I want them to be. I'm upgrading Ren so it can target any monster, applying 10 bleed to them. Like I said, the damage over time effects can be very powerful, even though I want Magnus to primarily be a blocker. We also didn't have enough money to remove more cards. I wish we did, but that gets cheaper later on as well, though you also start to get less money as you go up in Madness levels, so it sort of equals out. I'd say overall the 0 Madness run here is a bit easier than a Madness 16 run. Probably closer to like a Madness 14 run, but I'm getting ahead of myself. At this point, I might want to get rid of Healing Rains as it applies wet to all enemies, and I want to make sure that we have a steady stream of burn on our enemies, and wet will get rid of all burn charges. There's a Scarab that spawns in back there. It's not very important that we get it because we don't have a lot of damage. It's one of the things I found overall on this starting run is there's just a huge lack of damage potential because you might not get all the cards that you want. Which is sort of just how it goes. As well as not having any base damage increases that you can get from perk points that you could spend. So if you do have a few perk points, I highly recommend that you invest them in 1 energy if you can, 2 any form of damage increase, that is your main damage type, and 3 charges. That should help you get through a lot easier. Here, the fight wasn't too bad though. We were able to get straight through. I do opt for another Scavenge. Scavenge lets you pick up any card and place it on top of your deck, or if you upgrade it, it can just place it straight into your hand. So any card from your graveyard. So that's a pretty strong one. Here, it's important to look for anything interesting, but not steal. We want to get the Rune Slate because I'm going to show you how to unlock a pet. We unlocked Otis on the first act with the route that we went, and by defeating Yogur. So if you do complete this run, you should have 2 new unlocks. One of them will be the pet and one of them will be Otis. The Lizardman boss fight isn't too challenging. The guy in front, he likes to go stealth. If you can apply Mark to enemies, they won't be able to stealth anymore. But I don't remember what turns he stealths on this difficulty, so I didn't really worry about it too much. We want to get the majority of our mark on the boss enemy here because they are pretty meaty and have a lot of resistances. Thankfully, we did get 12 mark on them, while also getting a decent amount of mark on the other enemies. And Ember Storm there has been pretty strong for us, applying burn to everybody and allowing us to distribute our damage. It's especially good with mark because the more marked up they are, the more the low base damage of Ember Storm is going to hit like a truck. So all pretty synergistic stuff there. Yeah, I could have made sure we healed a little bit more on that fight by letting Reginald go, I believe, but I decided it didn't matter too much to me. Here, there's not too many things that I want to take. I thought about the poison card. I take Winter's Knight's Tale because it shuffles 2 cold spells into your deck and has them reduced by 2. I also add a prescription to Reginald's deck because I plan on having him go as more of a healer. Here we get exceptionally lucky and find a rare item straight away. I realize that I have Sacred Tablet on Magnus. I'm like, what the heck? Primal Necklace gives us +1 bleed charge, so I'll be giving that to Andrin so that he can have more bleed. And then Glacial Hammer is going to allow us to apply Frost as well as have +3 Frost damage to all our attacks. So that was pretty sweet. The +1 more bleed charge is also great on Andrin because he's already applying bleed anytime he hits an enemy. Now, it is important to note that he has to hit an enemy, not hit block. If he hits block, it doesn't apply the bleed charges. So it's an important distinction. Here, I also set up Andrin so that he can have a really good Wild Hunt turn next turn. That's one of the other big uses of setup. It lets you set up. So next turn, he should be able to apply a bunch of mark to enemies. I unfortunately only have draw for him, and I wasn't able to energize him with Evelyn's transmissions. She's the only one who can give energize right now. But hopefully that's enough. We are going to be going a bit more of a melee-centric build now that we're going for this route. The original route I had, I'll show probably early on. So people can see that. No, I'll show at the end of the video. At the end of the video, I'll show the exact route I was going to take and the plan that I had in case you don't have a purple event. It's a really powerful legendary item that you can get called Tempest. So, yeah. Beyond that, this fight is where things start to get a bit more challenging. So about halfway through acts, the enemies start to get a bit more difficult. They, how to say it? They go up a tier, if that makes sense. I don't know exactly what to say. Like, basically, it's very noticeable in randomized fights, but yeah, it's just after an act and halfway through an act, all enemies get a bit stronger. So you can expect them to be a bit tougher. Ideally, you've leveled up before they get this toughness boost, but that's not always a guarantee. So, yeah. And again, if you're struggling with this at all, I'll let you know that I did have to restart a few more fights than just the Yogur fight. I don't think I show all of them in this video because I didn't want to take too much time. I'd rather keep this video fairly short while still going over every single fight that I did and showing off all the cards that I got. Getting a big heal on Reginald there was super sweet. I was happy that I found that with prescription. One of the nice things about the finding random cards is I don't know if they unlock cards, but they can get you cards that you wouldn't have unlocked yet. So that big fat heal being one of them. If they do unlock cards, then they're even better in the early game. Here I take Icy Veins because I realize I don't really have ways to prevent bleed from stacking up on our heroes, and that's one of the most damaging things. Here you should read the Naga rune picture that we picked up in the lizard camp. And yeah, I'm going to go over this a little bit more because, man, I went through that really fast. Okay. Sorry, I'm going back a little bit in the video and then I'll talk about it. So yeah, on the event, we do go decipher the mural using the Naga's notes. This will let us unlock a new pet, and we get the boon card, Child of the Storm, put into our deck. Whenever you draw this, you dispel electricity, which is nice, and it gives you 1 energize, meaning you'll have the energy on your next turn, as well as 2 powerful, meaning you'll do 10% more damage on this turn. Powerful stacks only up to 10 charges though, so you can only have a maximum of 50% more without certain perks that you get way later down the line. Okay, for Magnus level up, like I said, we are going very defensive on him, so we got Wolfguard to start with. We're going to get defensive mastery now. It'll reduce all the defense cards in our hand by 1 until they are discarded. We really need his block to help survive some of the harder turns. Reginald, I was initially going to go a bit more healing on him, but because I opted for this build path, or this route, I opted to get Chastise instead, especially because I just wasn't finding any good heal cards. If I had found more good heal cards, I would have taken Healing Surge, which refunds an energy every time you play heal, as well as putting Bless on the most damaged hero for 3 times a turn. Chastise, on the other hand, whenever you play Holy Spell, add randomly upgraded Holy Smite card with cost 0 and Vanish into your hand 1 time a turn. Holy Smite is a card that does a good amount of holy damage, as well as gives you 1 Bless charge. So it's a way to start stacking up Bless charges on Reginald, because he gets 1 at the start of his turn. So Chastise is what I'm going to be going for. It'll make him a lot more of a damaging character. Elemental Amplifier is probably the most important pickup of this run. This will let you have +2 burn, chill, and spark charges on Evelyn. Charges are really hard to come by at the moment, so instead of focusing on having more versatile cards under the versatile effect, getting more charges is probably like the best bang for your buck, because a lot of cards start with only 1 and you'll be able to get up to 3, so you're basically increasing your charges you're applying by, is that plus 200% or plus 300%? Anyways, you're tripling the amount of charges that you would apply. So pretty darn good. Here we're going to go get momentum. I was originally going to get range mastery like I said, but I'm going with a lot less of a range build, a lot more of a melee build. And this is really good with the mark setup anyways. So whenever you play melee attack, that costs energy, refund 1 energy and gain 1 powerful. So Andrew can make himself a bit more powerful, as well as having a lot more energy. All the energy buffs we got so far on Magnus and Andrin are going to make their decks a lot more efficient. Here we get Stormy. He's going to cast a lightning bolt every turn. It doesn't do too much damage, but it's a nice little extra thing to have. I put on Evelyn since she'll be applying a bit more spark charges anyway, thanks to her versatile effect. And as you can see here, all of Andrin's cards are melee attacks. He's getting that refund on energy, and he will carry that into the next turn. So now we can have a lot bigger turns of Wild Hunt, especially we can give him more cards to draw. Now we do take a lot of damage here, and I think this fight was the first real hard fight of the run for me. I know I had to restart the Yogurt fight, but that wasn't too bad. I just kind of misplayed it a little bit because I wasn't sure what he'd be focusing damage-wise. But yeah, Magnus gets really low pretty much immediately, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to outspeed them. So we get Wild Hunt. I'm hoping I can kill at least 1 enemy before they get to go next turn so that Magnus has a better chance of survival. I'm trying to focus as much as I can, but I really can't shoot too many more. Thankfully, the randomness didn't hit Magnus there. Oh man, he did die. That's super rough. Darn. Yeah, this fight was tough. I think right after this fight, you could go to a mini-boss fight and have that kind of power up your run if you can defeat the mini-boss and get more stuff, but I opted to go straight to the campfire because I didn't think I could fight the mini-boss safely. I was also hoping to get rid of some of the death stores we just picked up, but I remembered that I can't because of the route that we're going is going to have us dig instead of rest. That Ressa's perk, by the way, is only available to you if you have a cleric on your team. They did put a taunt on Evelyn, so all the hits went to her, and she's at 6 health. That's going to make the next fight fairly challenging as well. I was hoping we were going to potentially draw a heal, though it's unlikely. Dawn's Light is a good card. It's a 0-cost holy damage card. Does damage equal to the number of cards in hand. It's just generally pretty decent. Scales off Bless, so yeah, instead of going up, we're going to go straight to the campsite, make sure we dig the west, and here we get some of the best items in the game. So Bloodseeker is going to give +2 bleed charges, and also whenever you damage with hit, you're going to apply 2 bleed. So it's kind of a supercharged Yogur's Cleaver, meaning whenever Andrin hits, thanks to his Primal Necklace, he's going to be applying 5 bleed. He also gets +4 slashing damage, so that's a pretty huge upgrade. Boots of Swiftness is really good for Magnus, as he's going to be able to have high enough speed to go faster than Andrin, meaning we can kind of buff him up if we want to do that, and just generally go faster than some of the fastest enemies in the game, meaning he should always be able to block and not have turns like he did on that fight. I pick up Eternal Candle. Being immune to Dark is really good in the late game. It also gives you plus Sanctify charges, which I do eventually plan on having on Reginald. Plus the +6 resistances. It's actually just really, really good. I do want the Merchant badge because plus 10% extra discount on Magic Forge, altars, and items in the shop is really good on your first run. But at the same time, Evelyn is about to die, so the Greater Health Potion giving her plus 40 HP once per combat seems really strong. Yeah, that was my reasoning behind that. I opt to not go for the disarm every 2 turns, which would mean I couldn't play any attack cards. I could still play spells and skills and defense cards, but no attacks. So yeah, that would have been devastating. We are picking up a bit more bleed on Andrin as well as we transition into a bleed-focused Andrin build. Like I said, bleed stacks are one of the stronger things that you can do in the game. There's even a warrior card that will let you double bleed stacks. I pick up a super legendary card, Heavenly Blessing there, on Reginald, and I save up 7 energy, so I could potentially cast it next turn. If I do get to go next turn, I should be able to heal most people up to full-ish, which will be very nice, so that we don't start the next fight super low, or have more death stores shoved in our decks, because we already have 2 and it's too many. Yeah. Unfortunately, they do speed up everybody here. God, I hate hate these fights. It's so brutal. Thankfully, they only silence the back hero, so one of the reasons I have the scout in back is that he doesn't get silenced. Did I remember that before I started this? No, but I did afterwards. They also gave buffer that's going to be countering our bleed effects on the eyeball. God, it's super, super annoying. But we are able to kill the back hero and the front back monster and the front monster. So we're doing a-okay. We also don't really have many options other than just attacking into the enchantment that they have there, where whenever we hit them, they do more damage. I was hoping Reginald was going to be able to get the kill here, as well as heal us all up. He did, and we were able to take out the last enemy there. Yeah, that super clutch legendary heal that we got, and also having the energy to save up for it, that was super nice. I pick up a Shock Nova on Evelyn because it has a slow 3 and it hits the entire enemy team. It costs 4 to play, meaning on your first turn if you draw it, you should always be able to play it. That should pretty much guarantee that you go first on the second turn with every single hero. There's very few enemies in the game that'll be able to go before them after that. So yeah, Shock Nova is a pretty nice card to find at this moment, although it's not very good against all these very electric and very electric and frost resistant monsters here, because this biome is full of those at the end. It's kind of weird that they're electric resistance, because you'd think being in the water they'd be less electric resistance, but I guess they built it up because they needed to. I don't know what the story is behind there, but it is kind of cool. I do like water lightning as a theme. Yeah, so here we do get the silence going off on Andrin. Thankfully, it always targets the back hero, so silence does not matter to him. He doesn't have any spells in the deck. If this were to happen to Reginald or to Evelyn, they would not be able to play almost any of their cards this turn, which would really suck. So, in general, I'm trying to prioritize taking out the enemies I view as the highest threats. I also just want to take out enemies as fast as possible, so the faster that they die, the better. I should have focused one more damage onto the third position monster there. I wasn't expecting them to get healed and survive, but that's one of the dangers of not knowing all the cards that are being played. Something Sight can help a lot on. Here, I really want to find a better heal spell for Reginald, but it's unlikely to happen. Again, all the buffer is making it so that they aren't bleeding as much as they should, but thankfully we do get through that pretty well because we're applying it every time we hit. That legendary sword that we got is probably the best bleed applying item in the entire game. So that's pretty solid. This next fight is actually really challenging. I think I struggled here some of the most. Here, Bloodbath is a really good pickup. It's a purple version, meaning it always vanishes, but it's also just like more powerful than the other versions of it, almost always. And it does 2x damage based on their bleed. So if they're bleeding for 20, that's going to do 40 damage as a base, which for 3 is pretty good, and they can bleed a lot more than 20. So technically charges stack up infinitely until you take a certain restricted power, which, oof, man, that one hurts. But even then, you can do a lot of damage with that card. So I was very lucky to find that on Magnus, especially going a more bleed route. Alternatively, just having the base version of it, I think, is a 1x damage, and it stays in the deck, so still doing 20 damage for 3 can be pretty decent. Or you can have it vanish for 1.5 damage, which is pretty good. The Hydra fight. The Hydra fight is... Sorry, I'm like going off on all the strats while the fight's going on. We are able to stack up a lot of bleed on the first Hydra here. I believe the back Hydra does start summoning Hydra heads after a while. I don't know how much it is on the first act, but this is very, very tough. They do slow us all down by applying 5 frost to all of us, as well as they're stacking wet charges. We didn't get any way to remove stacks of wet charges, which I would have wanted before doing this fight, so something like a heat wave would have been very nice. But the wet charges mean we take more damage from lightning, and the second Hydra head here that we're fighting is the lightning Hydra. I opted to put them in back, or on second, because I thought that Evelyn would be doing a lot of the damage, and they would get insulate if I didn't put them there. Alternatively, I could have had them up front so I could kill them faster, so I didn't have to worry about the wet charges getting me killed. Yeah, very tricky to figure out what I wanted to do here. I was debating whether I wanted delay response to go on Magnus or not, but I couldn't afford to slow down either Magnus or Andrin. I just didn't feel like I could. We do finally pick up Wild Hunt. It was on the very bottom of the deck, which hurts so much. All our wet turns into poison thanks to the third Hydra head there. And we are in dire straits. At this point, I just hope that I have enough damage to get through the fight fast enough before we die to poison. Brutal. Yeah, so Cold Spark, we're forced to hit the Hydra that is taunting, meaning that we're not going to be able to take out that lightning Hydra unless we get some form of AoE damage, which we aren't guaranteed to find at all. I'm pretty sure Magnus is going to die, so I'm not healing him up too much right now, but I figured maybe if I heal him a little bit, he could survive a little bit longer and at least tank some attacks. Here I did heal him up technically enough to survive, but yeah, he just gets hit by the Hydra and back anyway, so he is guaranteed dead. We do have a lot of bleed we're flying, so at least the Poison Hydra is finally dead, but I can't kill him fast enough, and the Lightning Hydra gets to go, meaning he gets to do his repeat attack there. That does a bunch of electric damage based off of our wet charges. Thankfully we didn't have too many because they'd been turned into poison. The back Hydra is super resistant to holy damage, so I'm very much going to need Andrin to do a lot more, or I'm going to need Evelyn to do a lot more. Unfortunately, Andrin is about to die here. And yeah, finally they're not taunting anymore, but we are down to our last 2 heroes, and these Death Stores are going to be very expensive to remove. Thankfully, Evelyn is doing quite a bit of damage. We changed all our damage to Frost. They have a lot of chill on them right now, and even though he's fairly resistant to Holy, he still can take some damage. And we were able to kill him. So yeah, I did lose to that fight once or twice, I believe, so that was difficult. Here we get a fairly good card. We get Sanctification, we get Combustion, which I do want to go into a burn build later for Evelyn. That's the main plan. I'll be going to the Fireland afterwards, picking up a very good item for her. And here we also get some good items. So Titan Gauntlets, Storm Tiara, and the Polluter, as well as Hydra Egg, are all guaranteed. The rest of these are random. Titan Gauntlets gives you 3 powerful every turn, as well as immunity to disarm. As you can imagine, that's very nice, although I don't really want the... I want the extra speed on from the armor that we have already on both Magnus and Andrin, because them being fast is very important. So I'm going to give Titan Gauntlets to somebody else. Hydra Egg looks pretty decent though, because it gives you immunity to poison, as well as 2 regen to all heroes, so that one's fairly strong. I do recommend picking it up. Reginald's going to be getting the powerful gauntlets, and Andrin is just going to get an upgrade to his ranger armor, which only gives +1 speed, and instead he's going to have +14 HP, +18 resistances, and +1 speed. And then Evelyn there is going to pick up Storm Tiara, because she might as well. Gives her a few more charges of electricity and wet, which might come in handy. Here we're going to do the red portal, go into the top-ish path, and I'm kind of showing where you're going. I'm not if you were going to go the other path, you would go all the way up top, but instead you're going to go through the center after going to the arena here. Most important thing of our money being spent here is getting rid of those death doors. It costs a lot to do, but it's worth it overall. Brigand armor is another speed armor, so I was looking at that, might be pretty good. But here, I really wanted to get better heal cards in Reginald's deck, but like I said, I just wasn't finding any throughout the run. They're all kind of mediocre heal cards, so instead I am very much diving more into the holy damage route and hoping I can find enough Sanctify that I can heal up our heroes, because I was noticing we are just struggling to heal after every fight. Basically, we're getting lucky if Prescription finds something that gives us something worthwhile there. So, very important to edit your decks down in the towns. I am trying to lower them as much as possible, though I don't want to spend all my money lowering down my deck size because I need it. Here I'm giving Barricade a upgrade. It gives it Reinforced to everybody. We don't have a lot of ways to apply Reinforced just yet. Magnus starts with 2, thankfully, but it's nice to have Reinforced on all our heroes. They'll take a lot less damage that way. Here I also want to be able to target any monster and apply bleed. Song of Celerity being in our opening hand is very important to me. It means that we can speed up our heroes on the very first turn. I'd love to be able to upgrade Winter's Knight's Tale and have those frost cards come straight into the hand, but I didn't save enough shards for it because everything's very expensive to upgrade. I'd say the economy is fairly similar to Madness 16, which is the highest difficulty on the very first run. Because you don't have any of the town upgrades that help make a lot of this cheaper. But you also get a lot more money than you can get on Madness 16, so it kind of equals out. Right now, the best thing we can do is just get our decks at least below 20. Ideally more, but like I said, you don't necessarily want to spend all your money in case there's a really good item that shows up later. Because really good items can change the run. Though we are already guaranteed some of the best items in the game for this run. We're going to be channeling Evelyn into a Fire Mage. Reginald's going to be a holy damage dealer, as well as apply Sanctify to help our team heal. And Andrin's going to be applying a bunch of bleed and mark to all enemies, making our whole team deal more damage, as well as just bleeding out enemies and making them take damage over time. So Rain of Arrows is a very good card. Were I going the ranged attack build, I would 100% pick this up right away. It does cost a lot, but it does a lot of damage to the entire team, and it does bleed and poison, as well as gives Andrin Sharp. I opt to go for it anyways. Excuse me. The reason I do that is because it does give you a lot of bleed. I was giving Andrin a lot of energy anyways. It gives him a lot of bleed charges that stack up on all enemies. It repeats twice, so it hits 3 times. And every one of those hits, just basic bleed damage, or the basic amount of bleed that we apply would be 5. plus the bleed that the thing it does itself. So every hit is 10 bleed, so we're stacking 30 bleed charges on all enemies, as well as hitting them for probably more than 40-ish, 50-ish damage. Depends on how much mark we have on them at the time and how much sharp Andrin has. So yeah, Cold Hands is a pretty difficult challenge. Thankfully, I was a little bit frost anyways. Evelyn's pretty good at being versatile. Due to her enchantments, she can make her damage buffs either frost or flames or whatever, so... Sorry, this isn't Cold Hands, this is you just... Every time you play a card, you get chill on you, meaning we're going to be going slower and slower as the fight progresses. But thankfully, we're able to slow them down a bit too. Meaning it wasn't really till the third round that they started guaranteeing going faster than us. I would love to kill that scarab in the back, but again, I just can't. So it's more annoying to me that it shows up now. It has 7 of 8 and 7 debuff charges. It's a really hard scarab to kill, I think, at like most levels, unless you're just very strong. Yeah, here you can see Reginald's damage is very much popping off. I would love to heal up Magnus a little bit more, but given the challenge that we faced, this seems pretty okay to me. Yeah, love to kill the scarab, but can't. Has too much evasion. And now we don't really have too much here. I would like to take a bookworm because we have 2 books in our deck that Evelyn is using for a lot of damage. Headbutt's decent, but it doesn't apply enough slow. Captivating Voice is very nice because it applies 3 slow, which is going to be enough to make sure we go first on some other times. Here, Evelyn has a really good event where she's able to guess something wrong and still get rewarded for it anyways. We get a divination, so we just get more card options. Really, that's all it is, as well as some shards. Here, we do want to participate in the arena. This fight actually ended up being a bit difficult because the stupid squirrel does a lot of damage, as well as the spider. Basically, a lot of enemies start targeting the front even on their random attacks, and Magnus goes down fairly fast. So I think I had to retry this fight once or twice. I think it was just once, but I didn't want Magnus dying before we get to the end, and there's a good chance we could heal him up if we play our cards right. I like that I'm able to say play our cards right and have it be like functionally entirely accurate. Alright. Sorry. Yeah, so we made sure that mosquitoes going down here. Mosquitoes are fairly annoying. They can stealth, they apply a lot of bleed charges, they hit fairly hard. I would love to have enough energy to play Rain of Arrows, so I'm planning to have that next turn, which would mean I can't play too many cards this turn. I am playing my melee attacks, but I'm hoping to get a Energize from Evelyn, I think. We're almost able to kill the squirrel there as well, but we don't quite have enough damage or bleed charges. Thankfully, Magnus was able to block for himself. We get a big fat chain heal into Reginald's deck, so I have him mainly on healing duty, so we're not taking too much damage throughout this fight, like I was saying. We have a lot of energy on Evelyn. She wasn't able to energize Andrin, unfortunately, meaning we don't get to play Rain of Arrows, and we don't have like an Adrenaline that we can play. So yeah, fairly unfortunate, but it's okay. Magnus was able to heal back up. That's all I really cared about for this fight. Whether we get Excellence or Greats or Goods, I'm kind of not too worried about. Getting Goods is good enough, and getting Excellence is just sort of gravy. It's hard to guarantee having enough damage, so yeah. Ambidextrous versus Setup. I go for Ambidextrous because we're going for a very melee-centric deck on Andrin. Duplicate 1 melee attack from your hand, cost reduced by 2. That's a permanent 2 cost for the entire battle. So that's a very strong duplication card there. It lets you basically have a much cheaper high-cost card than you otherwise could. Or potentially a free 2-cost card if you wanted to play it that way, which is also pretty good, although it's kind of free if it was a 1-cost as well, since Andrin does get an energy refund. There we were able to double up Puncture, meaning we applied 41 bleed to the back enemy there. Stacked up pretty well. Also sets up Magnus fairly well with his purple bloodthirsting card. And we are able to heal up during this fight, which is something you ideally want to do during every fight. So I'm feeling a little bit better about the state that we're in, since we were going pretty low on after every single fight we were doing last time. And we weren't able to take a campfire. Yeah. We would like to have more targeting as well. We don't have the best targeting cards right now. We have Rupture, which can hit any monster, but all our slices, which are kind of our best mark appliers, only target the front monster. So often we're not hitting the monsters that we'd really want to hit. Right now I power up Reginald because I know he's going to have a very powerful turn. Holy Storm is pretty strong. I wanted to get Bless up as much as I could before playing it. And here we can just heal up Magnus a little bit more. Maybe I should have healed up Andrin, but it's hard to say since I didn't know what they were going to be at. We get our Bloodthirster right on top. We draw into it thanks to one of our draw cards, and everything's working out pretty nicely. This fight was not very challenging. This fight ended up being a bit easier. Though the next fight is another mini boss, the sort of king of the arena. It's a pretty fun one overall. It's much stronger the more the fight goes on, as do most mini bosses. And they have a little special thing that I totally forgot about even existing, because I normally kill him so fast that he doesn't have a chance to get to like his round 4 where he does a special thing. But not this time. This time we're a little bit slow on our damage. He's got 724 health. He's a Minotaur. He's got dual axes. He looks pretty badass and he hits real hard. Yeah, stacking up Bleed is going to be our best way of killing him. Thankfully we have the perfect way of doing it. Evelyn and Reginald will also scale up over time. They sort of scale themselves up, whereas Andrin debuffs the enemy and doesn't really scale himself up. Well, I mean, he applies mark, so he scales the entire team up, but I think you understand what I mean. The Minotaur here tends to hit the front guy a lot, but he does have wide sweeping attacks. So I gave the Wolf Guard to Evelyn, because I was worried she might die. In retrospect, seeing how much he hit Magnus, I probably should have given it to him. That's just a little bit of an error there. Here we set up Evelyn's deck by playing Witcher's Knight's Tale, putting the powerful cold spells into her hand. Excuse me. Sorry. And we're going to delay response and clarity, meaning that we get rid of the slow that we apply with delay response, and Andrin gets +2 inspire, +1 energy, and we're going to have a big mark turn. So this is the sort of turn I've been trying to build up most of our fights. And yeah, we're able to get 19 mark on him, which is pretty good for not having any extra mark charges or things like that. However, on round 3, he summons another enemy, which is just another mini-boss. He doesn't have quite as much health, but he has a lot of the same attack moves, and he hurts quite a bit. So we were able to kill him just after he did that summon, but unfortunately we were a bit too slow. If we were able to slow him down more, we would have been fine. But it was not to be. We do still have Bloodbath. Bloodbath does the damage based on bleed, but we weren't able to make him bleed too much. But we'll still do it because it's cumulative damage. Like, the longer we have it on him, the better. He also isn't resistant to fire too well, so that's why I went for the fire damage on Evelyn. Also, we're going to be building towards fire on her generally. She's applying a bunch, which the burn plus the bleed, that's like 50 damage a turn, even if he were to survive, and now we just lined up like a lot more. Burn can do more damage than the charges on it because it lowers their resistance for every charge that they have, like by 0.5%. So they can have negative resistances, meaning if they have like full negative 95% resistances, they're taking double the amount of damage from the burn charges that they have, basically. Finishing out the arena like that does give us another boon in our deck that gives us Energize and Powerful. So now, thanks to Child of the Storm and the Gladiators arena, we have more Energize in our deck, and that'll allow us to have a lot more energy during fights overall. I did pick up this Vanish on Andrin because a 4 stealth card is pretty good for the Rain of Arrows combo. Stealth gives you plus 20% damage for every charge of it, so if you have 4 stealth on you, you're doing plus 80% damage. So if I do manage to line up a turn of 4 stealth plus Rain of Arrows, I'll be doing plus 80% damage plus whatever powerful and sharp I have, and that can potentially devastate the entire enemy team, not to mention all the bleed stacks that are going to be applied during that time. These Harpies are a bit challenging because they can target the back hero quite a bit. Thankfully, Andrin is somewhat resistant to their physical attacks. The blue harpies like to do a lot of storm damage, so it's good to focus them. Whereas the other harpies, they go into stealth quite a bit, so it's hard to focus them. And they like to hit the back hero anyways, which I'm fairly confident Andrin can take a few more hits. That's another reason it's kind of better not to have Evelyn or Reginald back there, even though the game guide, I think at the start, says you should. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. But I'm fairly certain it says to put Andrin where Reginald is, and Reginald where Andrin is. But don't do that. As you can see, Andrin's deck is fairly energy efficient right now. We actually are floating a lot more energy each turn, despite drawing an extra number of cards. The same is true for Magnus. So we can afford a few higher cost cards in both of their decks, even if it makes their first turns a bit less good. Reginald is able to get up to 6 blessed charges, which is nice. Ideally we could get more blessed stacks, but there's only a few items in the game that lets you have more blessed charges. So Reginald's scaling is not as good as it could be. 1 is fine, it's just now he has only 6 extra damage right now. So he is up to max powerful though, thanks to the gauntlets, and that is helping him deal a lot more damage than most everybody else. I figure I want Dispel Magic here because Dispelling is pretty good, but I also want that Holy Storm because it applies a lot of Bless, and it does more AoE damage, and I've been needing that. Okay, Valiant Defender there. Valiant Defender is a very good card. It gives Inspire and Block to a bunch of heroes, as well as more block charges. Every time you play a defense card for 9 defense cards. Holy Crusader is the next 4 Holy Spells, deals 5 damage to all monsters and applies 2 Sanctify, so this is where a lot of our Sanctify is going to be coming from, as well as a lot of our damage. The more blessed and powerful we have on him, the more damage that's going to be doing to all monsters. So he can easily play 4 Holy Spells in a turn, especially when he gets 1 for free thanks to Chastise. And that's going to be doing, I don't know, upwards of 40 or 50 damage to all enemies, as well as applying Sanctify to all of them, meaning that we're going to have a lot more heals on anyone who attacks the enemies. So very, very good. Here I wasn't sure what to get on Evelyn because she's been having trouble getting powerful. Arcane Conduit can be really good. For every energy you spend, draw a card, gain powerful, and 2 shield. It does cost an energy to play this enchantment, but it lasts 5 uses and can draw through the lot. So I opt for that one on Evelyn. I didn't have any super spells on her just yet, so I wasn't sure if Spell Echo copying one was going to be really good. That's normally the one I take in most builds, but not this one. Here, Serrated Weapon seems like the obvious choice with the bleed build on Andrin, because it, again, with more hits, we apply bleed and we gain sharp. It lasts 9 uses, plus it gives you plus 3 damage. So Andrin's going to be applying even more bleed anytime he has that enchantment on himself. Might as well accept the dwarfs here. The dwarfs request, we're not actually going to be able to complete it due to the route that we're going. We get fairly unlucky here and get 3 injuries out of the 4. I also opt to go down because I want to get a lot more money. There's a big money path down here that you can get if you get the card guesses right, which one way to cheese that is something I'll go over in a second. These lava guys can be fairly frightening though. If you apply a bunch of fire to them, especially I believe it's the back guy, because the lava elementals themselves can't have fire applied to them, but the back guy can take all of his fire and put it onto you. I don't know I think that's true right now, but I'm realizing I don't know if that's true for Madness Zero. Anyways, don't stack fire on him. It makes him stronger. These guys also get the elemental resistances, so it's a little bit hard for Evelyn to do a lot here. But thanks to her enchanted weapons, she can change her damage type to be cold, and that'll let her hit them way harder because most of them have bad cold resist, as you might expect. We also found a random Ray of Frost there, which is pretty fun. And Reginald still has no trouble dealing damage here. We have enough for the Sacred Ceremony heal card he just found, so that'll let him heal up the whole team. So now I'm feeling pretty comfortable in this fight. Most of the enemies are going to be going down. I want to let that Scarab live because that Scarab will get more shards per hero if we let it live 1 round. So it's better to just go down into good instead of getting greats because you don't get extra card tiers anyway. We could totally have killed it this round if we wanted to, but it's not really worth it. So, yeah. Oh man, I was about to place Divine Grace and not Sacred Ceremony, but thankfully I was smart and I was able to do Sacred Ceremony and heal up instead. Probably should have let Magnus go so that he could get some regen, but it's not going to matter too much overall. Radiant Assault is a very nice card. It repeats a lot, so the more Bless that we have, the more damage each hit's going to be doing. So for 5 energy, we get 5 hits. Very strong to have in a card, especially later on once we can make it cheaper. Here is the run. I'm going to slow down this footage to normal speed so you can see these. Following the gold and shards. I think it was there on the left. Yep, it was. So I was able to follow that just barely, speeding back up the footage. Yeah, I did check my video as well and slowed it down to see if I got it right, but I did. This fight overall, you want to open the box, even though it does lead to a fight. Well, one, leading to fights isn't necessarily bad because that's just more experience and more cards that you find overall. Though the experience you get per act is heavily diminished after you've already hit the next level for that act. So since we're level 4 already, we're going to be getting heavily diminished experience until we get to the next act where we can potentially try to get to level 5. The box, however, has a very important key that lets us get to the final treasure at the end. That's one of the reasons that we went this path, because it's one of the 2 paths that has a key. Plus, we need to go here. So Magnus is going to probably pick up a much better armor as well because he's just been taking so much damage, and even though it makes him slower, I hope that with Andrin's Song of Celerity happening first turn, it can make him fast enough to outspeed most of the relevant enemies in the game that are left. Since we're not going to be fighting too many enemies that are very fast, it should be worth it overall. We have kept the Healing Rain in Reginald's deck because it's going to be very good against the final boss of this act, which you might imagine does a lot of fire. Yeah. If you are having trouble picking out cards, a lot of the ones I picked out here are great. The one that hits the back enemy is not super great, and again, this is if you're newer. But yeah, I upgraded those Fire Blasts and kept them all in the deck because they are good ways of having a 0 cost apply burn, and since Evelyn's going to be applying a lot more burn, I wanted her to have a cheap way of doing that. She's also been the one kind of struggling with energy. We do pick up Winter Orb because it's a very good frost spell for her to have, and it hits a lot of times. It's a very similar reason that we picked up Radiant Assault. So yeah, I wanted it for the next few fights, but basically Fire and Frost is what Evelyn's going to be doing. She's going more Elemental. This is because we didn't really have a great way of choosing what cards we were going to be getting. So normally you'd like to focus on one damage type, because the more charges you have of that damage type, the more damage you start to do since it lowers the enemy resistances. But it's not entirely necessary. We are avoiding a lot of our AoE cards here because the AoE cards would hit the third monster there, which had a buff where wherever it blocked, it would deal damage to our entire team and apply fire. We did not want that. Thankfully, Vanish is a good way to get rid of fire here, so we opt for Vanish. We're going to have a lot of energy next turn. I'm going to go for the Rain of Arrows next turn. Them getting 50 block at the start of every turn is proving really difficult for me to get through. Again, we just have a hard time blasting through and dealing damage. We are able to focus fire a little bit. I'm going to try to kill these enemies like one at a time because it makes the fight easier overall, even though if you wanted to finish it fast, you could just kill the driver's seat enemy, but you'd have to be able to focus them fast enough. And they get the most block per turn anyways, as well as have the most HP. So we are able to do Rain of Arrows here. We also find Wild Hunt. Pretty good overall. I'm not applying Mark to as many of the people that I want to, but the Wild Hunt damage does apply a lot of bleed. And yeah, the Holy Crusader, we had enough damage there with AoE to hit them. So this being a sort of 4-part boss wasn't too bad for us. We could use Icy Veins to get rid of all their bleed. I do find that kind of funny. Thankfully, the Rain card that we had as well was able to get rid of all our fire that we had built up on us. So we weren't taking too much. I'm saving Bloodbath because I really want to use it when they have a lot more bleed on them, but I don't know when that's going to be. And we don't have a lot of mark on these last two guys that are left. I mean, the second one has 8 mark, but that's not like that much, all things considered. We have Ray of Frost, which is dealing a good amount of damage. Combustion, they don't have a lot of fire on them, so we're not doing any damage with it. Yeah, now all we need to do is take out this guy's block. He shouldn't be getting a bunch of block each turn because the guy who was second was giving him all his block. And now we should be able to take him out a lot easier. So we ended up focusing him last. He is the guy, he's the only one that you need to kill to finish the fight. But taking out the other parts can make the fight a lot easier, even if it does lower your rewards because you didn't get a excellent and you got a great instead like me. But, you know, that's still great. Maybe it's good. It's pretty much good. The only difference between good and great is the slightly less gold and slightly less energy rewards you get. So here we get 2 of the other best items. So mixed salad is incredibly good. Every turn, put a tomato, carrot, or broccoli into your hand. Those are all cards that give you some sort of buff as well as draw. So it's sort of a free 1 extra draw every single turn. Is a way you could look at this card as on top of whatever buffs that it gives you. So very, very good potion slot. The Chalice of Kings is one of the few ways to get blessed charges that I was talking about earlier. It also gives Reginald more heal, and it gives him more sanctify charges, so it's just purely better than the runestone he has. And then the Wall is a really high resistance armor that does lower your speed by 3, but it gives you +7 block charges and +1 fortify, which I feel like I desperately need. Andron's going to be getting the mixed salad so that he can have more draw every single turn. Since he's our first turn character, I did want him to have that little bit of extra draw so you could have a bit smoother turns. And here he was able to slow down the Harpy and speed up Magnus just enough so that he can go before the Harpy and get the block off. So that's how I was sort of intending to have the speed manipulation work, and it worked wonders. That won't hold true for the next turn, except we did draw Shock Nova, which means that Andron can yet again go before the Harpies do, even though the Harpy had sped themselves up quite a bit. And now most of us can go before, or most of the team can go before the rest of the enemies outside of the Harpy. We did draw the Captivating Voice slow, which is the thing that we were looking for. Unfortunately, Magnus got slowed down too, so he wasn't able to go before that Harpy, even though he does have a base of 14 speed right now. These enemies start to be fairly resistant to piercing, fire, and physical damage, like just generally. So the elemental damage here from Evelyn and the holy damage here from Reginald goes pretty far. It's one of the nice things about having a sort of 3 carry build, especially with Reginald being able to provide a little bit of heals while he's carrying. It lets you dish out whatever damage type you need for the fight. We also picked up Smoke Bomb last time because of reasons like this. Basically, you can skip an enemy's turn where they can't do anything to you because they didn't have the energy, or rather, they didn't have a target since all of us were stealthed. So Smoke Bomb can be very fun, has a few niche uses. It's not always the best card to take, but it is pretty good. Meditate is a very good card. Every hero class has a card like this where they get energy from it for 0. So this is the Cleric's one. They draw a card and get 2 energize. You can upgrade it for even better effects. Evelyn starts with hers. It's Monogem. It gives her just 0 cost 2 energy. Andron has his, which is Adrenaline, which is 0 cost 2 energy. No, it's also 2 energy, but you get 1 minus energize. There it is, yeah. Adrenaline. The start turn, and then I believe Magnus starts with Enrage as well. Yeah, so these 3 heroes all start with him. They're the starting heroes, so that makes sense. Yeah, you start with Enrage. Magnus's is theoretically the worst because it draws and gives you, it costs 1 to play. It gives you 2 energy back, so it's a net cost of, or it's a net gain of 1 energy. But it also draws a card, so it replaces itself. So it's a little bit nicer than Monogem sometimes because it's 1 extra energy. I don't know. It's not bad. And upgrading it can make you stronger. Now, these enemies here, unfortunately, like to shackle, and both Andrin and Magnus get shackled here. Unfortunately, I didn't buy Helping Hands that remove shackles. That would have been nice to have. I do have Sacred Ceremony here I picked out, so I'm going to be able to heal up more. I thought about doing the Holy Storms and killing as much as I could, but I thought the heals were fairly prudent there since we'd taken a lot of damage. Magnus is now also providing a ton of block, so we're not taking too much here. Whew, it's getting pretty far into the video, so I'm having to take a lot of drinks of water here. I've been a little bit sick, so sorry if my nose sounds stuffy. If it sounds stuffy, that's because it is. There's not too much more to commentate about this fight. Thinking up the stuff overall, like, I think we got fairly lucky in getting Chalice of Kings there. The Frozen Gauntlet, or the Mallet that we've had, has been really nice for slowing down enemies as well. It's let us go first on a lot of the other turns, on rounds like 2 and 3. Meaning we take a lot less damage. Reginald just, man, 75 damage with 1 holy card there. Pretty darn good now. Scorching Ray is just the card we wanted to see on Evelyn because we wanted to go into the fire build. So that was a good way to repeat damage and apply a lot more fire charges per hit. Here we get super duper lucky as well. We find the Hunting Ring, which allows us to apply 1 more mark charge. I do have to get rid of Primal Necklace, which has been applying more of our bleed charges, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but man, Hunter's Ring, oof. +1 mark charge is great, because normally all our cards are applying like, what, 1 mark? This doubles that. So that's going to be 2 more damage for every, or like 1 more damage for every time we apply mark. Aquamarine Bracelet is a good way to have Magnus get energy. Hunting Ring is what we're taking on Andrin, so now we're fully committed to the mark build. I do have Glacial Hammer, and I was expecting to get there's a boss item at the end that you can get, but I found Frostfire Ring, and that means for every chill we apply, we're also applying fire. So it might be better just to keep the Glacial Mallet. Yeah, this one ended up turning really interesting. Frostfire Ring's really cool. It's great for the Frostfire build, which I don't think I've done on the channel yet. I'm gonna do that next, I think, after this video. So that'll be next week's, is a Frostfire build, and hopefully I can find Frostfire Ring, because it's not guaranteed. Lava Boss here, he does like to heal up for all the flame that is on enemies. Now we did manage to stealth up there, allowing us not to take damage when we otherwise would have. And now we can start to slow him down with both frost and slows. We do have a Wild Hunt here. This isn't necessarily the best turn for it, but it's not a terrible turn either, because we do have Scavenge, we do have some draw, and we can apply a decent amount of marks. So he goes up to 16 mark. I figure that should be good enough for the first fight. I don't think this fight is too hard overall, other than just managing his burn stacks. If you are going mainly burn Evelyn, you sort of don't want to apply too much burn to him, because he's, again, going to heal all off of it like by quite a bit. Still, I want to do some frost charges so that he remains slow, so I opted to hit him a few more times. For every 5 frost they have on them, they lose 1 speed, so that is the reason that Glacial Mallet can be very strong, as well as, of course, reducing the resistances to frost damage overall. Plus, he is already pretty non-resistant to frost. Bleed, however, gets to stay on him quite a bit more. We're stacking that up to 68. I go for the hit here. Having almost 100 damage a turn on him feels pretty nice. And he's resistant to Holy, but not that resistant to Holy, so he's taken some damage. Yeah, and at this point, we had enough Frost cards that Evelyn was able to just hit him really hard. Even though he's going to shackle Andrin, our main damage dealer, and then go straight again and heal up after all of that, I think we still have the DPS to kill him this turn. At least I hope we do. We find Radiant Assault. Radiant Assault's pretty good. Holy Storm is an option. I don't think I needed to play Holy Storm. I probably could have just Radiant Assaulted the back guy there, but Holy Storm, you know, gets rid of all the other problems that were on the field. We give Frost damage to Evelyn. She doesn't have too much, but she's able to give Andrin a really strong turn. And here, yeah, perfect. Rain of Arrows. Easy. Obviously, he's already dead. I'm just kind of playing around, see how much damage I can do. So here we get Bleed Out, that is the double bleed of enemies. I snap picked that right away. Omniscience is a legendary card that you discard X cards, draw X, gain energy, bless, and dispel for every card you discarded. This can be very good for getting to the right cards in your deck. It also is a decent way to apply bless and potentially get some energy. Mainly I want to grab the Holy Crusader card that Reginald starts with, or doesn't start with, but levels up into. So yeah, here I wanted to pick up Volcanic Axe on Evelyn because it transforms all her damage to fire, gives her more of that damage type, and applies fire or burn on hit. But since I have Frostfire Ring, I'm kind of already applying burn on hit, just not quite as much as I would be doing with Volcanic Axe. So there's an argument for me not to take it. Then I realized that Magnus doesn't really have much of a reason to be doing physical damage. We're not buffing that in any way on him. And they're not getting their resistances reduced for physical damage almost ever. So Magnus getting Volcanic Axe could be a lot better than Evelyn, plus he already has a useless weapon. Whereas Evelyn has a pretty good weapon. Though there's also the option to give Ignito's Core, which is heat assimilation, pretty good. Lava Crystal here is powerful every turn for Reginald, so now we're going to be getting 5 powerful every turn, so he should be up to max powerful. We did that because we didn't have a good ring slot on anybody else. Here on this map, we are going to be going to the center. We want to use our black key that we picked up from the forge in the 4th act. Go down, make sure you choose the south and go black key. If you went through the Firelands, I believe if you're going through the Frostlands and pick up the key there, it is the north one. We go up there. And then we want to use our jade key that we found from doing our treasure hunt to go get the super treasure at the center. Here we also find really amazing items. This run was super lucky in items. Stimulant Pills is probably one of the best items in the entire game, as is Cloak of Speed, though there's such a thing as too much speed. Stimulant Pills is unfortunately a potion card, so if I do take it on Andrin, it's going to be giving him less energy, or rather less draw every single turn. Which is a fairly significant cost, but it ups his speed by 1, as well as gives him +1 fast charges. So that Song of Celerity that's been giving everybody 2 speed at the start of combat is now going to give everybody 4 speed, meaning we will definitely be able to outspeed the enemies that we want to do. And if I pick up Cloak of Speed as well, then we're going to be fast enough to go, I don't know, faster than literally everything. I honestly don't need Cloak of Speed, I just kind of get overexcited here, and I'm going to buy Cloak of Speed. Because Cloak of Speed's good. Gladiator Helmet is another really good card here. Gives +8 Fury, which is another way to have damage modifiers. Fury is a +3% damage for every charge that you have. Excuse me. And it gives you bleed for every charge that you have at the end of your turn. Meaning the next turn you're going to take that bleed damage and it's going to continue to stack. But unlike Powerful, which gives you 5% damage for every stack that you have, Fury doesn't have a cap on the amount of charges. So you can go up to, theoretically, Infinite Fury, but if you have Infinite Fury, you'll get Infinite Bleed at the end of your turn, so your next turn you will die. Unless you have some way to get rid of that bleed, which is totally a strat. Pretty fun strat, too. Fury is one of the best ways to deal like maximum damage in the game, as well as other scaling cards like the purple blood card that Magnus has. So now he's going to be doing fire damage. What's great about Magnus doing fire damage too is that the fire resistances of enemies are going to be lowered thanks to Evelyn applying so much burn. Now we are pretty much out of gold, so we can't remove too many cards in our deck. I, again, probably didn't need to buy that other armor that I bought on Andrin. I got really excited because I was like, oh man, 2 of the best speed items in the game. This is so valuable in Madness 16. Like, these are the things that I need. But I probably could have just gotten away with the Stimulant Pills. The Stimulant Pills was all I really needed there to outspeed everything else in the game. We did have a lot of shards here, so now thankfully we're going to be able to upgrade a lot of our cards. And make them a lot better, which I kind of want to do because I can't get rid of most of my cards at this point. I have spent all my money. And our decks are very fat. So yeah, a bit of mismanagement of money. You could probably do a little bit better than I did here if you were following along. And hopefully got some other decent cards. Probably not the same ones. But generally you'll find some stuff for bleed. And you'll find some stuff for like all these archetypes. Reginald did get a lot of the good holy cards. Like I said, if you wanted to build him as a healer rather than a damage dealer that also kind of heals, you could do that too, but it really depends on whatever you're finding on your very first run. And we just did not find a lot of heal cards. Like, Prescription was probably one of the best ones that we found. Cold Snap is very nice. We can pick up a cold spell from our graveyard and have it reduced in cost. We picked up Shifting Scroll on Evelyn too, so that she can find some spells from her deck, discard one into the graveyard, and then she can pick it back up. Again, it's not the graveyard, it's the discard pile, but I played a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh, so, you know, it's the graveyard to me. Right now, though, we do want to make sure that all our cards are as good as can be, so I'm upgrading Combustion to so it does 1.5 damage and vanishes rather than only the 1.0 damage for every burn charge they have on them, and stays in the deck. It's pretty much the same thing as Bloodbath, just for burn charges instead of bleed. And Magnus can upgrade his barricades so that it can block a bit better. I didn't get a lot of the best block cards for Magnus either. There's some really good ones I'm missing out on. I like Entrench. Entrench is a really good one. But it shouldn't matter too much. Burning Weapons is fairly scary to me because I don't know how strong this act is going to be. I'm a little bit wary of, like, I don't know our exact power level compared to the later acts because I forget how strong they are. And, like, to me, they could be infinitely strong. So I'm opting to play it safe by not taking that challenge, though looking back at it, I probably could have. Like, they're not dealing that much damage. And we're level 4. We have all of our all the damage we need to do. I want to take out the Gunner first because the Gunner tends to be very fast, and they can remove all of our Sharp. Generally, they're just going to get off more damage than I want them to. I forgot that they get rid of all their slow and speed themselves up and then give themselves evasion, so that strat didn't work. And Andrin's not going to be able to kill them at all. Though with the Hunter's Mark there, we did get a lot of mark on that front guy. Which is nice, but again, not too amazing. Now we have more barricades. I wish we had Entrench, because Entrench gives Fortify, so we could keep all of our block from turn to turn, as well as blocks for the entire team. That's the reason why it's really good. One of the other reasons it's nice that we're going to fight the southern constructs and going south in general here is this map has a theme. On the south is the dark constructs, and on the north is the holy constructs. The holy constructs are very resistant to holy and deal a lot of holy damage. The dark constructs are very resistant to dark and deal a lot of dark damage. So Reginald, but they have very minimal resistances to holy. So Reginald is going to be doing extra damage to them. I think they're like even negative in the resistances to holy. Because they're, I don't know, they're theoretically having a great war where they deal a lot of damage to each other and just kill each other. It's interesting, like, final area. I kind of like it. I like the chaos theme, the light and dark, which I did a build on a little bit ago, or at least my rendition of it. It wasn't it wasn't the best, but it was fun. Carnage is a very good card. We don't have a lot of ways to buff Magnus's damage, but that's nice too. We have a Winter's Knight's Tale that we got, so, you know, having more cards in our deck. Yeah, I'm like, Carnage? No, not Carnage. We're not buffing Magnus's damage a lot, so no reason to take it. Like, if we had a lot of Bless, or if we had Sharp and they were still the normal damage types, I would take it, but it wasn't really worth it here. Andrin is applying a fair bit of mark each time he draws the Wild Hunt to enemies, so now we're dealing a lot more extra damage. You can see the front guy takes like 32 from that one holy. No, he takes even more than that because he does damage through the block, so yeah, Reginald's doing a lot of work on the final act here. Evelyn's helping out too, applying burn, where Andrin is applying the mark and the bleed, and Magnus is making sure we all stay alive, so the whole team's really come together. I'm really happy with the way this run turned out. I think I got fairly lucky with a few of my items. Like, there's a lot of good items in the game, but this one, I don't know. Getting the Chalice of Kings for Reginald and having the damage build that we were doing anyways is really nice. There's some other really good heal items that you could get as well, like one that every time you heal a ally, you give them Bless. That would be one way that we could buff up Magnus and have him do a lot of damage, so it might be worth taking cards like Carnage. But here, Reginald pretty much wipes the entire team. We took the heat assimilation on Evelyn because it's just a nice way to heal up when we don't have a lot of heals in our normal decks, and it gets rid of the burn that I thought might be coming if we... Well, I know is coming for the very final boss. And some of the bosses... Yeah. No, and the boss of this Floyd as well. So it's pretty decent. No need to take Sharpening Knife on Andrin. I don't think I'm going a sharp build on him anymore. Bleed is all I really need, and he's mostly applying Mark. So I didn't want to like get in the way of applying more Mark. This is the final fight that we have to do before we get the Super Treasure. We go and fight a duo chaos damage build. These are not the easiest fights. The monks deal damage through block. They also heal a lot. The lancers can get rid of vitality, and they can also deal damage through block. So you can end up taking a lot of unexpected damage because you thought you were going to block all their damage and then they just hit you anyways. It really depends on the RNG. There's the Oppression, deals damage through block. That was one of the cards I was talking about. The monks here can also apply Sanctify, and they have these enchantments that they put on themselves where every time they heal, and they have like chain heal cards, they deal either Sanctify and some damage or Darken some damage, I think. So yeah, pretty scary stuff. We upgraded the Healing Rain to be Dispel Fire and grant regen instead of getting wet on all enemies, because like I said, we want fire charges on all of our enemies now. That is Evelyn's main role, which she does through applying frost as well. So we can go frost weapons or fire weapons depending on the damage type that we desire. These guys were weaker to frost damage, the holy guys that is. So I went for the frost on Evelyn, whereas the back guy is pretty resistant to frost, but I figured Reginald has the damage for that. It looks like Andrin also has the damage for that with the Rain of Arrows and Vanish combo. So we're getting a lot of bleed. Now, the items that were guaranteed on this run were the Reginald, or sorry, not Reginald's. Reginald's was not guaranteed. Well, Reginald's three of his items actually were guaranteed. The candle, the gauntlets, and the ring that he has were all guaranteed items. The non-guaranteed items are mostly on Evelyn. She has the plate armor, frostfire ring, and the frozen mallet. Those aren't always going to come up. We did find a purple winter's orb, which is kind of fun. Does a good amount of base damage for frost, that implies a lot of frost. And here we get the catharsis, where, yeah, if you go through this entire quest, you follow it all the way through, so you take the path that we took. Mainly you just need to go where we went on the first act and where we went on the second act. The second act one can be done at some point, but you do need to pick up the key from either the Frost or the Fireland as well to be able to get over here in the final act. Otherwise you have to pass a really hard skill check that you probably can't do. But it does give us Catharsis, which gives us an energy every time we draw it, as well as some Bless and something else. I think, some Dispel. Anyway, it's really, really good. The Straw Hat here is going to give everybody 2 Inspire, 2 Vitality, and 2 Powerful. So it buffs up the entire team, gives a good amount of HP and resistances as well, and the 2 extra card draw a turn for all of your heroes is really money. We also got even more lucky because we found Justicar Ring and Penitence Ring. So for every Sanctify we applied, we could either apply Burn or we could apply Bleed. I actually didn't know which one I wanted to do more. It was a pretty hard one to figure out. I wish I had kept Red Steel Cloak and not bought the other cloak that I did, because I could have had more money and I could have just upgraded it here anyways. I didn't need all the speed that he was getting. Night Veil is another thing that we have. It's a good way. It's a lot of resistances. It can protect our most damaged hero by giving them some stealth. And it gives them some speed, which will allow whoever we give it to potentially slow down the enemy. I think that makes it best on Evelyn, so I think going for it there is really good. But yeah, I have a hard time like figuring out what I want to do with these items. There's a lot of paths I could go. Mainly the Justicar Ring or the Penitence Ring. I didn't know whether giving Bleed was better. I also didn't know if I wanted more speed on Magnus. Holy Hammer is also really great. Like if I wasn't going with the Chalice of Kings where it was giving me extra Bless, I think the Holy Hammer on Reginald would have been really nice. I picked it up on Magnus because I was thinking that having a bit more Sanctify charge would be really nice. However, what I didn't realize is that every time he hits, it applies the Sanctify, and then he also uses it up, so he just heals a little bit, which is not very good. I should have kept the fire weapon that he had. Also, Magnus is full of guaranteed items as well. He's got the Hydra Egg, the Wall, and the Fire Hammer. So, most of the items on this run are pretty guaranteed. And the ones that aren't guaranteed are just happen to be better. So we get the level 4 for, oh, there he is, 1 second. I'm like, man, where are we? We're at 123. Here we go. Yeah, so I wanted to go over these final levels. One of the nice things about going this route as well is you get to hit level 5 before you actually fight the boss of this area. Normally you would hit the, did I level up? Am I crazy? Did I level up? I must have leveled up, yeah. Okay, that's weird. Oh, I'm not gonna go back. But Magnus is level 5. You get extra energy every turn, plus you can't have any fatigue, meaning you can't have your energy lowered for any other turns. It's moderately helpful. The +1 energy a turn is really nice. Everything else is kind of okay. The thing that Reginald gets is every time he plays a holy card, he reduces the highest cost holy card in his hand by 3. So as you can see right there, it allows us to play both Holy Storms, which normally cost 4 and 5, for just 1 and 2. And we played our free flashes so that we could enable their cost reduction. So for 4 energy, we played like 12 energies worth of cards, basically. Pretty strong. We also get the Vanish Rain of Arrows combo here, so we're almost able to wipe them on round 2 straight away, but I mean, we are going to be able to wipe them round 2, just we have to have one more turn other than Andrin's. Even Evelyn's going to be able to get the kill here. I say even Evelyn. Evelyn has a pretty good deck. It's definitely not bad. Barrage is a really good card for us. It allows Andrin just to hit a lot of times and apply a lot of bleed, which is what we want to do. Oh yeah, Evelyn's level up was a glass cannon. She does 60% more damage and loses 25 health. I was feeling strong and confident enough that I felt like I could do it. So I go for that instead, or do I take the energy one? Either way, either one of Evelyn's is good. And for Andrin, I take the +3 mark rather than getting sharp every time I play a ranged attack, because I'm not going the ranged attack. I am going the, what's it called, attack? The melee build where we apply bleed and stuff and get powerful. But yeah, getting too sharp would be really good otherwise. There's also a ring that can give you +1 sharp charges, which is fairly similar to the Hunter's Mark ring. It just kind of ups his damage instead, and that can make Andrin very strong. Here, the golems can be pretty difficult to deal with because they have these enchantments where they hit the entire team. Every time they get hit, they alternate on which one is doing that every single round. So for this round, now the front golem, if we hit his health, not his block, but his health, he will be damaging our entire team, which hurts quite a bit. They also apply these enchantments to us at the start of the next round. On Higher Madnesses, it's a bit earlier. But the Dark One's going to be applying a enchantment that every time we play a card, one of them gets shield and it applies Dark to us. And if you get to 25 Dark, you pop and it will take a bunch of damage. You don't immediately die, but it can be very painful. I think we're going to have enough damage, though, to not have to worry about it, because Reginald still hasn't gone. He does a lot, since the back guy is not resistant to Holy. As you might expect, he's very resistant to Dark. The front guy is very resistant to Holy, so he's taking like a quarter of the damage. Thankfully, we have we have Evelyn and Andrin to make up for that. He does apply Law of Light to us, unfortunately. So we do have the enchantment where every time we play a card, he heals for 1% of his HP. Our stacks that we're applying, though, should more than compensate for that. And as long as we're doing more than 1% of his HP per card that we're playing on average, our burn and bleed stacks will eventually finish him off regardless of what we do. But if we do more damage than that, like Evelyn just did, and wiped out 400 HP in a turn, then we're in even better shape. Here we got finally a really amazing heal card. We got the Heavenly Blessing that we were able to play earlier. I love this card. It's cool. Unnecessary though. I take Siegebreaker because I want more ways to apply Vulnerable. We haven't been able to apply a lot of that per turn, and here we get even more luck. Cloud Song is a really good item. Reduces the cost of the highest card in your hand by 2. Now that is by 2 permanently for the rest of the fight. Yeah, every time I say permanently, it's not for like the entire run, just the rest of the fight, but yeah. Cloud Song, really, really good. It makes it so that you don't really have energy concerns ever, and you generally don't have energy concerns the longer the fight goes on, because all your cards start getting reduced by 2. So that was a pretty nice pickup. I don't think there's too many more items in the game that we could possibly get that would be stronger than what we have. If we had different builds, of course, there are some better items for that. But as it stands, we're fairly good. I think there's another legendary Holy Hammer that Reginald could have gotten that would be even better for him, where every time you apply Bless, you do some holy damage, and I believe it also gives you some extra Bless charges. So that one's nice, but it's unnecessary. We are very happy with Chalice of Kings. Could have gotten a purple Chalice of Kings too, and then we could have even more Bless charges. So yeah, I guess there's ways this run could be luckier, but as it is, I feel very blessed. These enemies on the top floor here are very challenging. They can be harder than the golem fights if you're not prepared for them. Ideally, before you do this as well, if you're going more of a heal route, or just in general, whatever route you're going, if you can find any cards that give you courage in the 4th act or before the 4th act, you probably want to take them, because pretty much everything is doing holy or dark damage, and it'll save you 30% of that damage when you apply it to yourselves. So there's a AoE courage card that like I almost always pick up on most of my runs if I have a cleric. Only the clerics can find them, but that one will save you a lot of work. There is a better card I could have found rather than Barrage, by the way, that would be Eviscerate with my Ambidextrous. It's a melee card that applies bleed and also repeats, and has a bit higher base damage, as well as double damage. It's a bit more expensive than Barrage, but with Ambidextrous you can lower the cost down by making a copy that costs 2 less. That just stays in your deck, so it's pretty good. Now we're finishing the fights fairly fast. I realized that I was probably underestimating my power level by not taking the whatever it was there, the challenge modifier. And I could have definitely taken that. Here we have 7,000 gold. You get a lot of gold when you complete the Straw Hat event, so you should be able to edit your deck down as much as you need to. There's not really much else you can spend money on at this point. Like, there's the very, very small chance that you find a corruption modifier that you can do on the final fight before the boss, and it could let you find another shop. But the chances of that are pretty low, so unless you desperately need it, don't worry about saving your gold. Just get rid of all the cards that you feel like are bad. In retrospect, I probably could have gotten rid of more, but I opted to keep them instead, because I didn't want to think about what I'd have to get rid of. So here we're upgrading whatever we can, really. Sanctification, because it'll stay in our deck and we can keep doubling up the Sanctify. That'll let us heal up a bit better on the final boss, and generally we have a hard time keeping a lot of Sanctify charges up. Oh, I did take the Bonk Hammer as well, that's what it was on the other fight there. The Bonk Hammer is a 3 slow and 1 weakness card, a 3 slow and 1 weakness high damage card that gets played at the start of your turn if you have it as a weapon. I think it also increases your damage by like +3, so pretty good. The plus base damage can be really nice. Now, going the upper route was a bit harder for us. I think the rewards are a little bit better because you get to go over that garden, and if you take the card that it gives you by having one hero eat the apple, it's a pretty good card. It shows you what it is. It's a plus energy, or you get 1 energy and some bless whenever you draw it. Alternatively, you can just get 15 HP on all your heroes. So that's a good option there. This fight is not too bad if you can take out the Psychic and the front guy first. They do the most damage and have the most disruption. The Psychic will apply enchantment to themselves. Whenever they get damaged, they will silence the person who damaged them, which can be pretty tough for Reginald and Evelyn. So we wanted to prioritize him. The front guy just does a ton of damage. He's also the tankiest, but kind of the easiest to hit for us with Andrin. So we went for that instead. Our card here was able to get us enough card draw so that we could find, yeah, the Omniscience there was able to get us enough card draw so we can find more holy spells. And that was a great a case of why it's a good card to take. Sacred Ceremony, it's a little bit too late. I really would love it if I found that heal card much earlier, but I don't think I need it right now. The Meditate just seems better for me, even though I want Sacred Ceremony to be good. Purple Ray of Frost is pretty good, but I don't feel like I need that one either. We go for Last Stand on Magnus because I have some block cards that I'd like to be able to get, like 2 barricades out on a turn. So for 3 energy on Magnus, and he's immune to fatigue anyways, might as well take it. Evelyn doesn't need the elemental stuff anymore. We can probably get rid of a lot more cards than we're getting rid of, but I just didn't want to think at this point. I'll have Magnus do the speech here. He's the one who earned it. He's doing none of the damage, but he's blocking for the entire team. So this wizard here has a lot of health, probably the most health of anything that we fought so far in the game, even combined. I believe the 2 golems had like 900 each. They do have a little bit of a heal, but so can this guy, so he's not someone you really want to mess around with. Unfortunately, the bonk hammer means that I did have my entire team go before him, and ideally I could go after him so that we could deal with his clones in a more expedient manner, because his clones are going to be healing him up whenever they can. He's very resistant to both fire and to what's it called? Cold damage, I want to say? No, not cold damage. He's resistant to fire and dark damage. But he's really weak to cold and holy damage, so Evelyn and Reginald are going to be able to dish out all the correct types of damage here. He doesn't really have... Actually, he's even weaker to any sort of physical damage because he's a wizard. These clones, you want to prioritize them because they will start healing him up and getting rid of all the... or they will dispel all the, what's it called, charges on him. So right there, they just got rid of his 47 bleed that he had on him. Thankfully, he still has 47 marks, so if we can kill the other 2 clones before they go, we might be able to finish off him before he can heal back up. They also heal for like a ton. Like I think they healed him like 400 HP there. Evelyn's got a pretty good deck at this point. It might be a little bit hard to follow along. Sorry for the speed. I know it gets challenging to see at this point. I tried to play this whole run a little bit slower than I normally did in terms of how fast I sped up the footage, so it was a bit more possible to follow along. Here I thought maybe I could just go straight for the kill instead of trying to kill everyone. I want to do Holy Crusader. Yeah, we're just going straight for the kill here. Oh man. Yeah, I'm not going for the clones at all because I feel like I have the damage. I forget if I do or not. This is really intense. It's 100 damage each. Oh, it's so close. Oh, it's so close, but it's not going to be quite enough, and he's going to heal up a bunch because of his clones. Yeah, see, he's up to like 1,200 there. Man, that was real nice. Still, he does kill all your pets on the 3rd round on Madness 0, and we're going to be able to save our 1 pet that we unlocked this run. So that's nice. This definitely isn't a huge unlock run. This is more just a, hey, did you want to get your first win? If you have even more perk points than this, too, I can throw on a little bit of a video on... I'll throw a little bit at the end here about, like, what sort of perks you could take. Having, like, 20 or so, I think, goes a long way. I think you have probably around, like, 12-ish after your 1st and 2nd run, depending on how far you get. Of course, Handcheck is not the final boss here. The true final boss is the Dark Archon here. It's got 5,666 HP. I like what they did there. It's surprising it's not 6,666, but I guess that just would have been too much HP. So, you know, they had to do what they could. Final boss music is also pretty cool. It's kind of that cool guitar solo I had on a little bit earlier. I'll play it again because that's what it should be. He also summons a clone. His clone is really mean. Straight away, his clone likes to debuff your heroes by giving them 1 less Inspire and 1 less Energy. Or, sorry, gets rid of all your Energize, so basically even if you had extra Energize, you would get 1 less of it. And so like something like Reginald, where he's going to have like a lot of energy on his next turn, he actually will lose like, instead of just 1 of it, he'll lose like 3 of it, and then they'll also all lose a card draw. With Straw Hat, it's not too big of a deal because we have a lot of card draw already, but it's really annoying otherwise. As you can see, I was also able to give Straw Hat to Antron, which like makes the most sense, I think. Since he's going first, it means that we're getting our Inspire on everybody on the very first turn. I didn't mention that yet, so I wanted to make sure I said it. We want to make sure we kill the clone as well, because he can start healing up the boss, as well as applying that huge debuff to us. Whether or not we'll be able to is another question. Might as well hit him for the 116. No, I'm so confident in Reginald's damage. He's got 17 Blessed, to be fair, and 10 Powerful, so like I can understand being fairly confident. But man, I don't have a lot of holy cards left, and I didn't draw a lot of the holy cards that I needed to. Oh, I'm 1 shy of killing him. Oh, that's so funny. I get so punished for not doing the extra damage. Oh, but he just does Wither. Okay, he actually didn't do... Never mind. He doesn't do as crazy of an effect as I thought he did. I guess that's just on higher madness levels. So cool. Not punished. Now we can just focus all of our energy on the Dark Archon. He's already got 261 flame on him. The more... I think he's probably got negative 95 resistances already. Especially with all that vulnerability. We have 38 Mark as well, so every card we play is just hitting him for like hundreds of damage. And he's only got so much HP. Reginald at this point has 10 energy. He's going to have a pretty decent turn, even though he doesn't have all of his best cards. I gave him some fireballs on top of his deck, because I thought that'd be funny. And there's a Divine Ire charged up to 10 because it's cool. And yeah, he takes like 1,000 damage from fire at the end. We completed our first run. So there's all the cards we unlocked. Here's our final score. If you wanted to start the next run, you'd have a big chest of 4,000 gold and 4,000 shards that you could pop open. And that should help you get through Madness 1. This is this was a build on just some powerful items you can get, a pretty good guaranteed run for getting a lot of good boons, a lot of good items, and having the damage to sustain through the final fight, even without any perks on the very first go. The cards that you get will vary, so that could make it a little bit harder or a little bit easier. We didn't get all the best cards that we could have gotten, and I kind of had to change the build up on the fly, which might be the hardest part if you're a newer player to try to figure out how to do. But hopefully the items would be enough to help carry you through. This route is very strong. It's one of the very strongest in the game, if not the strongest for almost any composition. Though there's a lot more you can do if you wanted to have specific compositions, which I show off in all my high madness runs, where I do madness 16 run challenges. As you can see, Evelyn did the most damage here. Reginald was right behind, and yeah, it's kind of surprising to see, because it felt like for a while Andron was doing the damage, and then it felt like Reginald was doing all of it, but Evelyn was doing the most by far. Anyways, that's going to be it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a good time, and I hope this helps you if you're struggling with first runs. Have a great day, and goodbye. And hello. As promised, I wanted to show you an alternative path that you could use to get through level 0 run. You want to go to the green events that I am highlighting with the circles, and you want to follow the red arrows as a path. The first one, you want to help the farmers. They will give you a rope. Then you can go down towards the hatch. The hatch you can jump into. You may get an injury, but it's okay. Just make sure you get down there. Take the southernmost route. After you tie up a pig at the front entrance, make sure you do that. Then you can throw a pig into the middle. You will get a nice little boon card that gives you an energy and some powerful whenever you draw it. And you can beat a sub-boss down there. It should help level you up pretty quickly. From there, you'll make your way up. You want to go to the other green event, pay 60 gold for that sack of grain. It's going to be very important to get the better item for this run. After that, you can follow the red arrows for the rest of the way. Then, for your second path, go and choose the lava lands, which is the red area. You can then follow the upper path that I've highlighted with these red arrows again. Complete the arena fights. It's pretty good. It gives you another good boon for your deck. Continue following the path that I've outlined. There, at the very top, you will meet a harpy. You can give them the sack of grain. This would otherwise be a mini-boss fight. Once you give them the sack of grain, you'll get experience, and then you'll get a good loot table. One of the looted items will be Tempest. Tempest is a very good item I'm showing here on screen. It'll help you draw cards, and paired with Quick Shot, you can draw cards for free while giving yourself some Sharp on Andrin. So very, very good item. From there, you can kind of choose whatever path you want, but I'm going to show you the frost path that I would choose. Here, I've highlighted a few different routes that you could go. You can take the southern route if the guy with the ladder is not there on the path I've circled, because otherwise you can't get into the area that you need to go. Otherwise, if he is there, you can take the upper path that I've shown. It'll cost you less money. The southern route does cost 1,000 gold to take the ship, and spending less money is nice sometimes, so you can spend it on other things. Once you get down into there, you take the right path. I don't have it shown on screen, but you can, I think, search through the boxes. You'll get a key, and that key is going to be important for the fourth act that I'll show here. You want to go follow this route and get the chest in the very middle of the map. That'll give you some more high tier items, and from there hopefully you can win the run and have some good stuff to help you along your way. Alright, that's going to be it. Now I'm really signing off. Thank you very much, and goodbye.